All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about our agenda for today. I'm going to, I see a few people are in, but I'm going to put a link in for just our little notes that we've been keeping on this. So you're welcome to open that up, but I will share my screen so we can all kind of look at that together. So today I want to start off talking a little bit more about the data hub. I know that that was a spot that we did talk about some last time, and I was kind of in communication with a few people since then about some of the trials and tribulations that they've been going through with the data hub. And so I do have a little bit of an update there. I know it's one of those things that I incrementally learn about as I go. So I'm going to continue to share a little bit about that. So we'll talk about data hub. There's a new resource that I just got my hands on, and I don't think it's being widely distributed yet, but I thought it was really, really great and a really great start. This was something that was done at some of the Northern Michigan ISDs. So I'm gonna share a few things out of that. And to me, it really prompted some conversation that needs to be happening now, kind of leading up to when MICIP actually gets released. So I thought maybe we could just have a little bit of a conversation around that resource, and then maybe think about some conversations that we might be having, should be having back in our district now, in this kind of in between time where we can't get in and do our stuff in assist yet, but in MICIP, but there's some things that we could be doing to be ready for that. And finally, then we'll go ahead and we'll get into the system, and we'll keep kind of working through the discover data portion of it. So that was just our agenda today, and just kind of thinking about when everybody checked in and some of the things that they talked about. A couple of things that I heard that I think were really important was that folks are really talking about this process, that they're excited about the process. Because I think we all know that just a platform that we can just go in and fill out is not going to be something that really changes a lot of practice and that sort of thing. But if we have really good processes in place and we have the right people involved in that process, I heard a lot of people talking about how they're excited about building level leadership and having building teams that were interacting with district teams and things like that. And those are the sorts of things I think that we really need to be thinking about right now to make the process a successful one. Because I think, like we talked about at the last meeting, very easily we could get in and say, well, there's a new platform and a new bunch of stuff that we have to fill out. And I think that this mindset shift to think of it as a continuous process is a really important one. So I was really glad to hear pretty much everybody kind of talking about that in the introduction. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about Data Hub. And we did talk about this a little bit last time, but there's basically two things that we can kind of be doing right now with the Data Hub to be ready for the release. And one of them is the federation. And so being federated with the Data Hub basically means that you can log into the Data Hub. So that is kind of the very first thing that we need to be able to do, is to be able to log in. And then the second thing is that we can be working with our tech folks to get as much data flowing in the Data Hub as possible. And at our last meeting, I shared this resource, and if you missed what I just clicked, it's just under the Data Hub, this district connection status. And you can actually filter this and find your district. I'm just going to filter it for the Muskegon ISD real quick. So I'm going to come over here to the ISD, and I'm going to clear this and select the Muskegon ISD. And so when I do that, I can kind of see what everybody's status is. So when we connected last time and we were talking about this, I was like, I know that these are things that we should be doing right now, and the more connected we are, the better. But I didn't really know what it would really do for us very much to have these connections. And so I can speak for the Muskegon ISD. I took this to our tech guys and reviewed this with them, and they're going to work on getting all of what I would call this column N in place. And so this is the current year. They're going to be working on getting columns N and O kind of caught up to being current. And then in doing so, it'll change this where it says current school year, it'll start to turn this to green. So, but if you are not at Muskegon ISD, this is something that your district can do. And if maybe you don't have a lot of tech folks in your district, it's something that the ISD can help you with. I know we have a couple of people connecting from Ottawa ISD, and Ottawa ISD is really on top of things with this. So if you look through this and find your school and see that things aren't current in it, the more current that you can get this, the more data that will be available in MICIP when it comes to the Discover data portion. Now you can still run the whole process if you're not, if you have a bag, if there's not a lot of stuff and things like that. It's just that you'll have more data to be able to use for that data discovery and the assessing needs portion if it's connected. And I know that's kind of not real solid about what's going to be in there. So I have a couple more resources that tell a little bit more about that. Right here, there's a star here. It says conversation with Dave in Data Hub. And that just links down to some emails that I had with a couple of people from the Data Hub since our last meeting. So, I kind of emailed and I was like, hey, I'm really trying to get people on board with getting connected to the Data Hub so that we can kind of move forward with this. Can you give some examples of what that will mean? And that sort of thing. So I got a couple of responses. One was from Tom Johnson, which anybody that's been to any Data Hub PDs or anything that the state's put on, you'll have met Tom. He basically kind of said, hey, if you're able to get things that are lined up well, then you'll be able to get reports like what are in the EWS work. And so basically it would be attendance, behavior, grades, and things like that. So, I have a link there to something that he has shared that kind of tells a little bit more about it. But basically by being connected to the Data Hub, you'll have a lot more up-to-date data and data that you would be putting into your student information system. So in our case, in Muskegon ISD, that'd be PowerSchool. So it'd be basically pulling live data out of PowerSchool to put into poll. So instead of old reports, that say what our attendance was last year that you might get out of like my school data, you could say, what does our attendance look like right now? Okay, we put in this new initiative since our last time we met. What does our attendance look like right now? So the more stuff you can connect and the more connected you are in Data Hub, the more immediate kind of actionable data will be in the system.
David, I have a question.
Sure.
When I looked at this document and I looked at Dearborn, I see that both are green. But I know that we have about at least 75 administrators in our district who have accounts with my school data. And we've heard that automatically their accounts will be migrated to the data hub. Is that correct?
So there's a lot of confusion. I think I need to make some sort of visual. I'll try to explain this, but I think I need to make some sort of visual. My school data went through a recent redesign to a new basically a whole new look. So my school data is the web page that's maintained by CEPI that has all kinds of historical data in it. And that's where all of you can look up all kinds of stuff, attendance data and preschool data.
Yeah.
That's where our district report cards are and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When they moved to the new system, anybody that had an old login would migrate forward as long as they made a new login in what's called My Login.
Mm-hmm.
And My Login doesn't have anything to do with with MICIP. So My Login and my school data are all kind of one thing to think about. And then MICIP is a completely different thing to think about. Now, what MICIP will do is it will pull in reports from my school data But the way that your district, your administrators at Dearborn get to log into MICIP is by getting federated. And so there's different processes. You guys might have worked hard to get everybody logins to my school data. That won't do anything for getting them logged into MICIP. So the way to do that is to have them get federated. And up here in this section, there's a guide in how to get federated. And in a second here, I can show you where you can go to look to see if your district has been federated. So we can take a look at that here in a second, but it's super confusing. I feel like every time I try to talk to somebody about it, I feel like I said it, but it's hard to understand what I just said. So I think I'm going to try to make some sort of graphic that kind of displays that.
So they are getting federated into my login or into Data Hub.
So my login is the login for my school data.
Yeah.
And that's completely separate from MICIP. And so when you get federated to the data hub, that is going to allow your administrators to log into MICIP.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is because I had a hard time creating the account into my login. And once you make a mistake, it will put a pause on it until you contact help desk. So it was not user friendly at all, even though like I forgot the answers to the questions that I have set up a long time ago. And you would have to wait for them to contact you back and resolve the issue. So moving forward, I'm anticipating a lot of issues with our staff when they try to log into my login if they have not done that yet.
Yeah, it's you are not the only one that experienced problems with that. Let's just put it that way. I maintain all of those accounts here for Muskegon County, and I've had to help a ton of people with it. And some of the things we can't, the ISD people that manage those accounts, there are some things that we can't do. And like you said, you have to go through their help desk to actually get them fixed. So yeah, but the thing in this case, the thing to remember is that whole my login situation is completely separate from the way that we will log into MICIP. So they used to call these things like the single sign-on, but the state realized that they had like 5 different single sign-ons. So they at least call them different things now, but they used to say, well, just go to the single sign-on. And like, depending on who you're talking to, there were different single sign-ons that they would send you to. So it's super confusing for sure.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions. So, like from your conversation now, I understood that if they had my school data, they should have my login. And to log into my KIP, you need to go through the data hub.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. And when we go to log in, I'll show that a couple of times.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. So really just kind of finish up this data hub conversation. This second response that I got to the question really goes in, and it was from Kevin, one of the techs with the data hub. And he goes in and kind of explains what each column means. So he starts with like column J here, and he says, okay, this is what column J means, and when that is working, this is what you get out of it. So I'm not going to go over all of those, but mostly just to say that this information's here. So if you're looking at that and you're talking to your tech guys about it, and like, we need to try to get more connected to the data hub. If just remember that that's in this document. If they're asking questions about, well, what'll it do if I get this connected? This will tell you exactly what it will do for you. So I wanted to scroll down just to the very bottom of this. And this is what Kevin said. This was his recommendations for like, what needs to happen now. And so he said, number 1, get the MICIP agreement signed. Again, that's on here. It'll most of Muskegon County has theirs signed. And then 2 is to get that single sign-on federation. So that's that logging in situation that I'll talk about here next. And then finally getting the current year published. So those are kind of the main 3 things. And for those of you in Muskegon County, we're trying to do number 3. We're trying to get that set for everybody, so you don't have to do that. So Pam, not to put you on the spot, but I know that you and I kind of talked about this a little bit. And it sounds like, just from some of the emails, it sounds like you were able to get the agreement signed. And do you like anything else that you might share to anybody that hasn't been through the process of it, other than it is confusing?
That's the key, is it is confusing. And I'm afraid if somebody asked me now what I did to get there, I couldn't answer off the cuff. I would have to go through a series of communications. But it did involve sending an email to tech support, some sort of a help desk. Sorry, I'm not gonna be able to tell you the details of what I had to do.
That's okay. I didn't need you to try to walk through it or anything like
Okay,
that. But
yeah. So we've signed our agreement, and my tech team got an email recently that says we are federated. So we're moving in the right direction.
And I think, Pam, that most of the technical way to do that is right here. There's kind of a memo that talks about it. There's something that says how to get connected that has the email address to the tech help desk. And then this technical documentation is what your tech guys will need to actually kind of fill out to send them through that help desk. So hopefully that's the documentation that Pam was looking at when she did that. So, so anyway, I'm sorry to spend so much time on this data hub part of it. I know that we want to get on to, some of those other pieces that we talked about when we were doing our introductions, but it's not going to work if some of that technical stuff doesn't happen in the background. So I just wanted to make sure that I went over that, and you at least knew where some of these resources were when you were maybe working with your tech folks to get things connected. So unless there's anything further on that, I will go ahead and move forward. So just any other questions about Data Hub, or why we want to get connected, or where I can find some resources? And hopefully nobody has any specific questions, because I'm not sure how beyond what I just shared, what I might be able to help with. All right, I will go ahead and move forward then. So while we're here, before I kind of move on to this resource, I thought maybe now would be a good time to just kind of show what the login looks like. I think I have that open here. Yeah, so I'm going to open up a new incognito window. And so when we get to logging in and logging into the test server, you're going to want to do that in an incognito window. So that's just up if you hit the 3 dots in the top right corner. We're not all going to log in together right now. I just wanted to show kind of we've talked about this federation thing, and I want to show what that means. So I'm going to open up an incognito window, and I'm going to copy over this demo login, which is training.micip.org. And you'll get kind of when you get there, it says, do you want to log in with my Launchpad, or do you want to log in with my login? And this is a confusing thing. So Fatmir had brought up the my login. So if you worked for MDE, you actually use my login to log in. If you work anywhere else, so everybody else, all of us, we would log in with this my Launchpad situation. So that's another thing that's confusing about the whole thing. But this is where you can figure out if you're federated or not. So if your district is federated, then it will be listed here. So Pam had talked about Reese Puffer. And so I can see Reese Puffer on the list. So I know that Reese Puffer is federated. So for those of us at Muskegon ISD, my Muskegon ISD is federated. North Muskegon is federated. So so this will, it'll show up here if you're federated. Dearborn Public Schools, looks like you guys are federated. So so if your name shows up here, it means that they did the process that they needed to do to make it so that your administrative teams can start logging in. So I just kind of wanted to show, and when you see this list, this is the list of everybody that's federated in the state. So we'll come back to this later. I just kind of wanted to show that list, just so everybody can kind of see what that is, and so you can tell if you're federated or not. Um, okay, so moving on, I wanted to talk about this new resource, Northern Michigan Roadmap. And it's pretty cool. It's linked there. It should be viewable by anybody. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so everybody can see this a little bit better. And basically, this was made by some ISD folks, like I mentioned, up in the northern part of the state. And it's kind of just a big conglomeration of a bunch of different resources that have been being put together. The state is also, MDE is also putting together a process guide that we'll also walk through, but this I think has some different things in it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there was a specific section that I wanted us to all have a conversation about today. And so I'll look at the table of contents right now. The part that I wanted to talk about today was the preparing your team portion. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But you can kind of pop around through the whole thing to go to the different sections. So right now they have a pretty, up through plan is pretty well done. Once you get into the implementing, reporting, and funding, those sections are all kind of still being worked on. But for right now, this preparing your team before you begin discover and plan sections are all pretty well fleshed out. I was pretty impressed with what they put together so far. And like I mentioned, I'd really like to talk about this working as a team portion. And I thought that I might have everybody, after we kind of review this, just get into some small groups for just a minute to kind of talk about what did this make them think about for putting teams together? How might those teams operate? So I wanted to kind of talk about this. And I think we might get into some small groups to chat for just a couple of minutes about this. So one of the things they talk about in this working as a team is these expectations for team members, and talked about team norms, this whole idea of the improvement process, the mindset, the platform, what change process means, and how you can use the continuous improvement for that. Really what they're saying is to have these sorts of things established ahead of time. And I know some districts are better at that than others, and some are thinking about using this time as an opportunity to make a change, to have some more team-based decision making. So I thought that this was just gave a couple of things to think about between now and then. When you're setting up the teams, what are the expectations for the team members? What norms are you going to have? Do we have an updated vision, mission, belief statements, those sorts of things? So I thought that this working as a team piece was something that would be interesting to think about. And then they have also here the gathering of the team. And they have some ideas here about who might serve on the team. And as we talked about last time, MICIP is set up to be basically a district improvement planning process. There's not a district improvement plan that's separate from a school improvement plan. It's set up to be a district improvement planning process, but the activities and strategies that are embedded within that can be assigned to buildings. And so how will that district team interact with building teams that might be kind of doing the implementation of that? So I wanted to just kind of use this as a resource and to get into just a couple of small groups to share out. I'm thinking just, maybe about 6 or 7 minutes to talk about what are you thinking about for team makeup. I'll try to, let's see if I can, I'll make sure that we get people that are coming from the same district into the same room so you guys can have some of those conversations. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now, but you can use those 2 slides as a resource. I'm going to pause our recording. All right, so welcome back. I thought maybe we could just take a minute for just a couple of people maybe to share something that they heard somebody else talk about when they were in with their breakouts. We'll just maybe have 2 or maybe 3 people share.
Well, I'll say that. I'll start and say that Pam did a fantastic job of talking about her team and already has a community member to be part of it. Nick happens to have students in the district. So that was just exciting.
I think I'm an opportunist.
Yes.
Welcome to the team, Nick. Excellent.
I'll add from there, I heard,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Pam.
oh, sorry, Dave. I was just going to add on from there. Lisa and I both talked about some of the, she mostly talked about some of the strategies that are already underway with her work with the JTC, and how we both foresee existing work simply becoming part of those continuous improvement strategies that we're going to see forward and carry forward. Finding the way to take the work we're already doing and strategizing through it, and using the MICIP process to just get better at what we already know we need to do.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Maybe we get one more person to share.
Rita talked about that right now, like we have a bunch of different like silos of like information and teams that are working on things, and that this process and really this document that they have here does a really nice job of bringing it all together and mixing those silos together with this plan.
Yeah, I think that that's a very common occurrence, is that siloed situation. You know, you can get siloed by a department, or if you're within a building, or you can get siloed by elementary versus secondary, or just by the elementary schools if you have multiple elementary schools and things like that. So that siloed situation is definitely a very common thing. And I think one of the ways that they're really trying to work to to break those silos down is to making it one continuous process. So I think that should definitely be helpful for that. So, all right, excellent. I appreciate everybody engaging in that conversation. So just thinking about the last thing that I had on the list then was really just to get back in and just kind of keep kind of playing around in the system. So I'm going to walk everybody through how to get logged in. And then, so I'll share my screen for that. And you're welcome to either, if you'd like to try to log in to the test server, you're welcome to do that while I'm also doing it. You're welcome to kind of just get in there and kind of mess around with it. Or you're also welcome to just watch and just kind of engage in the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And the way to get logged in is down here in this resources section. It starts here with open an incognito window. And so depending on what kind of computer and browser and such that you're using, the way that I do that is I just click on the three dots up in the top corner and I say open a new incognito window. You can also do Control-Shift-End or Command-Shift-End if you're on a Mac, but you'll need to just get that incognito window open. And what that does for you is it makes it so that you're not logged into any windows. It doesn't save any cookies. It doesn't try to use logins from other things. So that's kind of why they want you using an incognito window. Once you have that incognito window open, then you can just highlight this address right here, this training.micip.org, and go to that webpage. So I'm going to go ahead, and when you do that, you'll end up at this page here. And we want to go to where it says just this My Data Hub login. Don't go to your district because this isn't about your district yet. It's just a test server. So we're just going to go to this very first one, this blue one that says My Data Hub login. And the login credentials are right there on the in the instructions. So the username is demo@micip.org. And then the password is also there. It says welcome to MICIP with an exclamation point. I recommend just copying and pasting that because there's a lot of uppercase, lowercase, things like that. So I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in for my password. And I got some sort of error. Boy, we're 2 for 2, guys. Last time I was at least able to get signed in. Was
I
anybody
had
else,
the same problem.
was anyone
I'm
else
in.
able to get signed in?
I got in.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna give it another try. So that's the problem with trying things that are in beta testing. Sometimes they work better than others. Maybe it didn't like it that all 8 of us were trying to sign in at once.
I think I'm in.
All right. I'm in too.
Yep,
All
that's
right.
what it looks like.
Excellent. So for those of you that haven't been in before, right now this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is a test site. And so there's people all over the state that are kind of in here messing around. They do wipe this out every night. So I don't like spend hours crafting these amazing conversations and things like that in it, because it will get deleted. They kind of blow the whole thing away every night. What you'll see when you first log in is the dashboard, and it would tell you here any active goals that you have. So you can see that a couple people today made a couple of different goals. So they had an ELL goal and a math goal that somebody had made. And so those are ones that would be complete. And so when you're in your school, it'll obviously show any of the active goals that you have going on. You can also have inactive goals, archived goals. There's all kinds of different goals that you can have, but your active ones will show up right here. And then below that, it'll list out anything that is kind of in progress. So the thing about the system is that it will be kind of more nonlinear, where you might be having some data conversations around some things that some people are interested in the district, but it hasn't quite gotten to the level of making goals about it or those sorts of things. So it'll be pretty common to have some in progress things and to be having those kind of conversations for an extended period of time. They have a lot of tools in to build how to have conversations and guide different conversations. And so it's not the sort of thing where you're going to sit down in one setting and all of a sudden you're going to have a goal by the end of it. So you'll very often you're going to see you'll see that there will be several things that are in progress, conversations that are in progress. It will also pull in our most recent assist plan. And so that's just something that'll be there for 1 year. And it's just a PDF of the assist plan. So it's nothing special. You probably already have one downloaded. So, but it will have the most recent assist plans in there. So across the top are the different 3 main sections of how to do the continuous improvement in MICIP. And so the first one here is discover. That's discover data and analyze data. The next one is the plan section. That's where we manage our goals and strategies. And then the implementation is where you can get into the portfolio and you can really start to look at what did the different buildings agree to do, who's in charge of making those different things happen, whether it's a principal or a school improvement team member or superintendent, whatever. And so the implement area kind of holds the whole portfolio with all those different pieces in it. So I wanted to get into the discover data, and we're not going to get, I don't think, unfortunately, much farther than we got last time, but I really wanted to go over some of those conversations today and hopefully at least get you guys going so you can play around with it if you'd like to in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, next week, we'll try to get into the system a little bit earlier. But I want to come into this discover data section. The last time we were here, the My School Data integration didn't work. And I actually got in earlier today to kind of mess around with it to see, and it still wasn't working for me. So we're going to try something different today. We mentioned last time that when you come in to discover data, I really like that at the point they point out that, again, we're really trying to think about whole child data. And so there's lots of different ways that we can do that. One way is to create this custom data set, and that's what we're going to play around with a little bit today. down at the bottom, they're going to have some different templates that will automatically pull data from some different sources. Again, there's 3 sources of data that you can pull from. One is you can pull from My School data. 2 is you can upload any local data that you want. And then the third source of data that you'll be able to use is data from the data hub. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said the better connection you have to the data hub, the more is going to be available to pull in here. And so that third data source will only be available to you if your district is getting connected to the data hub and has the data flowing in the data hub. So, so I'm going to come up and I'm going to click on create custom data set. And I pulled a couple of reports that I want to upload, and they're kind of about, I'm going to call them school culture and climate, where it was more about our behavior data and some attendance data. So I'm going to say that I'm going to make a school climate and culture goal, and I'm going to call it Dave's School Climate and Culture Test. So the name that you put here ends up getting listed on the side here. So, you know, you'd want to give it a pretty descriptive name. So when I come in, that's when the first thing that it wants to do is to add some data to it. And when I come here to add data, right now, like I mentioned, you can connect to My School data. However, when I tried to do that earlier today, it was giving me the same kind of issues that we had the last time we tried to do this. You can upload your own district data. That's what we're going to do today. And like I mentioned, if you're connected to the data hub, there will be a third button here that says data hub, and that's going to be those kind of just-in-time reports that get pulled straight from your student information system. So for right now, I'm going to do an upload, and you can actually just drag and drop data there. So I pulled a couple of pieces of data from one of our districts in the county. So I pulled some expulsion data, some student count data, and some of their mobility trend data. And so I'm just going to drop that in here. And so what is this? This is longitudinal expulsion data or suspension data. And you can also give it a summary. So, you know, if I were working with my team, I'd say, you know, how do we want to describe this piece of data that we just put in? You're not having a huge conversation around it, but for right now, I'm just gonna put in the same thing. And so it's saying, where did this data originate? So they have some different pieces here that you can put in there. And as of right now, they're not letting us indicate that it's something other than that. I would say, you know, usually this would be something I got out of My School data or Our School data. So I'm just going to say accept, and I'm going to add that data set. And so it actually puts that data set right in there. And when I click view data object, it will actually show me that report that I just uploaded. So I just took a PDF out of My School data and uploaded it there. So so that's how you just upload your own piece of data. And you can upload anything there. You can upload PDFs or Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or, you know, CSV files. You can upload anything that you want into it. So I'm going to hit upload additional data, and I'm just going to drop in, I'll drop in that attendance data too. All right. So I'm going to go back to Discover Data, and I see Dave's School Climate and Culture Test here. And the 2 pieces of data are since you can add multiple things into one object. I probably should have done this in two separate ones, because there were 2 different pieces of data. You know, instead of, if they were both suspension data about suspension, I could have uploaded both of them there. So let's just do one more then. So I'm going to add another data source, and I'm just going to put in our mobility data.
Dave, if you wanted to delete that other one, would you have to go ahead and just, I guess, remove it and then re-upload it a separate piece?
Yeah, I'm thinking it doesn't look like, I was thinking that maybe there'd be an opportunity to take that out. Let's see here.
Nope.
No, oh, I see. You know what, I kind of like this actually. What it does is, so let's say that this was a report that I pulled, and then the next month there was a new report.
Okay.
And you could upload it into the same spot, and then you'd have a history of that report.
Oh, okay, over time that way.
Yeah.
All right.
So okay, I'd never done it that way, and so I didn't realize what that was for. But so it looks like that's what that's for. You can go back into it, and you can add additional data that are around that. So, like I said, so let's say this was like the September data, then I could upload the October data and the November data as that
So
comes
they
in.
would all be in those folders, and that way you'd have them organized by subject or topic or whatever. you
Yeah,
wanna do.
yeah.
Okay.
I like that now that I realize what it's for.
It's trial and error. That's how we learn.
Absolutely. All right, so just coming in here, and I see that we're kind of at the end, but just to kind of wrap this section up, you can see that I have those two different pieces of data uploaded. Again, we would also be able to add my school data, and then anything from the data hub for data that would be flowing. So next time, I promise that I'll have one of these data sets made. And when we jump in, the first thing we're going to do is we'll start working through the actual data story process. So unfortunately, we didn't really get any farther than we got last time, but I think hopefully there was some good conversation today. And for those of you that haven't been able to log into the system before, you know how to get logged in now. And next time, I promise we'll jump straight into the data story section. So anything that anybody wanted to check in about or ask about or anything like that before we call it a day?
Quick question. Is it known yet if multiple users would be able to log in at the same time?
Yeah, so multiple users will be able to be logged in.
Okay.
Now the part that it's not going to be like a Google Doc though, where like,
Okay.
let's say that you and I both had the same data story open and we're both dropping things,
Right.
things like that. I don't think that's going to work.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it might be the sort of thing where, you know, if there are a couple of teams working and you're like, okay, we're working on this data story, you know,
Okay.
around attendance, and somebody else is working on an ELA data story, you know, those two teams could both be in and working at the same time, but like not two people, I don't think, working on this in the same story. I don't think
That's fine. I just, because I know that question will come up, so that's why I was thinking ahead.
Yeah, but multiple people will be able to be logged in and working on different things at the same time for sure. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
It's got to be a different component. I have a question, Dave.
Sure.
When we select the metrics to look at and then make them part of our data story, I was wondering if there would be a blurb somewhere prior to that in the discover section to advise the person who's doing that on what type of metrics to select. How do I know what I want to pull in the first place? And how do I know? Because I won't know what my goal is until I describe the data and come up with a data story. So is there any way, and I'm not sure if you do give feedback or who gives feedback on that, if we, and we know with best practice that we need to select multiple sources of data to come up with a story, like perception data, process data, student achievement, and demographics. So a good goal requires that we look at all different types of data and then come up with a conclusion to create the goal and strategies. Is there some kind of like anticipatory set that would guide us to do that? Or do we have to come in knowing that we do this in order to develop goals?
So I have a couple of thoughts, and okay, thanks, Joy. Good to see you. I have a couple of thoughts about some things that already exist, and then also I believe that that's going to be part of the process guide that's coming out. So I think that they're going to talk about data selection and you know, those sorts of things in the process guide. One other thing that I'll say that kind of exists now in the system, and I'll share my screen again real quick, is we didn't talk about this today, but if I go back to Discover Data, they have these data templates that are going to be here. And those ones will, these are going to be user created and then kind of, I would say, curated I guess, for which ones get put into the system. But when we click on those, so like, let's say that we went to non-academic and we were asking about family engagement, it would actually have different data sets that will automatically pull data from a couple of different sources. And then probably have some suggestions of local data to look at. So I know that doesn't exactly get at what you're talking about there, Fatme, but I think that there will be templates that will get people started on if they're saying, you know, well, I know that we really want to dig into family engagement, or we really want to dig into school climate and culture. There will be different templates that exist that will pull some existing data. So you don't have to just start from scratch and say, well, what data do we want? But the point, I think, point taken for sure is we want to look at multiple sources of data. We want to have whole child data. And without appropriate guidance in that, some teams might kind of resort to just the sorts of things they've done before, pulling state assessment data and things like that. So I'll be interested to see if, Fatme, if the process guides dig into that. And I do have quite a few meetings often with Terry Nugent and the others that are working on this, and I can specifically ask about that the next time I see them too.
Thank you.
All right. Any other last thoughts for today? All right. I really appreciate everybody being here. Our next meeting, again, these are open forums, so if you can't make it, that's okay. But our next one, if I can get back to my, looks like our next meeting is on the 1st. So Tuesday the 1st at 3:30. And in the meantime, my contact information is in the little dashboard there. So if anybody wants to reach out about anything, would be happy to talk to you about it.
You mind if Deanna and I hang out for just a minute? We wanted to touch base on some data.
Sure thing. Yep.
Thanks.
I'll even stop recording for that.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate